As the City Council meetings are now broadcast on Channel 1, it's necessary that a high-caliber feed be established. We're also requesting that high-end automated cameras be installed in strategic positions in both the caucus room and in this council so that better viewing and better hearing will be provided to the public who's tuning in. We'll also be seeking some financial assistance from Comcast to upgrade our outdated audiovisual equipment, much of which was purchased at the outset of the current franchise agreement, which was 14 years ago. Another point is both the Municipal Board of Education program, which has grown tremendously over the past several years, we'll be requesting a separate channel for the Board of Education. And the reason for that is that a lot of city business that's conducted, a lot of the time on Channel 1 is taken up by the Board of Education. We want a separate channel, whether it's Channel 50, 51, whatever channel they pick, so that the public can say, well, I'm interested in the Board of Education, that's going to be on this channel. I want to see what else is going on in the city, and I can stay with Channel 1. So we want two separate channels, and I believe the Board of Education is in full agreement with this. Also, I know that Comcast wants to take over Channel 1 for their viewing, I think you call it pay-per-view. On demand, thank you. At any rate, we feel that we've now invested heavily in Channel 1 in the city. Citizens know, particularly senior citizens, that they want to see a caucus meeting, they can put on Channel 1. They want to see a council meeting, put on Channel 1. Want to see public service announcements, emergency announcements. Everyone now knows to turn on to Channel 1. We don't want to give that up. We're going to fight hard to keep Channel 1, and Comcast can find another number along the station which they can then brand as their own for this on-demand, for these on-demand opportunities. Also, there's an annual scholarship program, I believe it's $8,000 a year, that Comcast was supposed to be sending us. As far as we know, the $8,000 has been given each year to the Board of Education. We want them to give this city, we want them to keep their word in that we get a scholarship amount so that we can use it for students, youngsters as interns, maybe working up on the third floor, helping Stan and JC1 TV folks out with their mission, and also learning a lot about the business. So those are some of the things that we think are important, that we want to make sure are addressed in these negotiating sessions, so that if and when a new deal is reached, May of 2013, we will, those issues will be addressed, and we'll all be better for it. That's all I have to say. Thank you, everyone.
My name is Esther Linder, and I agree with the mayor in particular about what he said about having funds come in directly to the city for scholarship programs for interns so that they could work in some type of media and learning process. And just so you know, I come from a background of the arts, so this is something that is kind of important to me and very helpful to the students. I feel that Comcast Cable should upgrade those systems. The audio visual were kind of outdated. We can't hear anything. They should help the city in that respect. About the station for the Board of Ed, I agree with Ms. Balser. I think we have 500 stations, 501 stations. It won't kill anybody. The Board of Ed can have their own station, and the people that have their own shows should have their own programming, because they do add something to the city in terms of assets. But what I would like to discuss, and the reason I'm here in particular, is regarding the Channel 1 station that Comcast would like to take away. It's, from my understanding, 30 years ago when the original cable company came in, they gave this Channel 1 station to the city because nobody would watch it. And over the course of the past 30 years, the city has worked hard to brand this station. It is now ours. And if anybody is old enough to remember this, I want my JC1 TV, I mean that. And there are a lot of people here that look forward to that JC1 TV, and they should be watching that JC1 TV. Because in my home, I call the television the idiot box. But if anybody's going to turn it on, that should be the first thing that they see. It also appears to me that Comcast Cable is the third corporation out from the original inception of this cable station in Jersey City. The cost of laying the cables, all of those things that go into setting up the infrastructure was the reason why the original company was the only company in the city. Well, it's now 30 years later. I think, or I believe, that these things would be paid for by now. And if the city, if Comcast Cable will not honor the original agreement, then maybe perhaps we should open the market to some competition to see what they can offer us, because it's become very expensive. I think in addition to keeping the JC1 TV and bringing funds directly to the city, we need rates for low-income people, and we need rates for seniors. So if Comcast Cable wants to show, some kind of bad faith in the original contract and not uphold that original contract, then I think that as a city, you should start looking at other opportunities and with companies that are willing to help the city grow and prosper. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Dear Honorable Representatives, we are the residents of Plaza Apartments 91 Sixth Avenue, Jersey City. Plaza Apartment is the subsidized housing complex for seniors. This building is having Comcast Cable Network in the building. This is monopoly cable network of Comcast, and there's no other cable operator competitor. In the building, number of residents are from different ethnic groups: Indian, Spanish, Philippines, Korean, Chinese, Japanese, etc. Now, the problem is those who do not speak English cannot get free local channels by antenna. They are forced to subscribe basic channels or lower basic channels and pay for it. One should not pay for what one need. One should pay for what one need or require. Why one should be compelled to pay for one who does not need? If I require a pair of pants, the shop owner cannot compel me to purchase a shirt too. It is not a malpractice. Why is it happening with Comcast? Because it is a monopoly. There is no other cable operator who is licensed to do business in the area, hence the monopolies has gotten open free hand to exploit the customers. And if I am not wrong, city government has issued a license to Comcast for this monopoly business. You being our legal representatives, we desire that you may look into the matter and bring amicable solution in the interest of common matters. If necessary, do not hesitate to call me. And then 201-795-1069. Thank you. In anticipation, Shirley, sincerely, Kantilal Sharma, President of the Plaza Apartments Tenants Association.
I was present at the first round of negotiations with Comcast in 1998, which hooked up the city and my station in Snyder to establish our shared channel on Channel 1. The 98 franchise agreement provided Comcast with provided the city from Comcast about $150,000 of startup equipment. It also provided the educational station, which is the station I run, a yearly co-op stipend, which enabled JCE-TV, and still does, to develop co-op jobs for our seniors in high school. In fact, I was able to place 3 of our graduates in the internship program with the city's television station, Mahmoud Francisco, and formerly Angelina, who's moved on to another job in New York. And I agree with the mayor, the city should have the same kind of stipend. Perhaps they can match the yearly stipend that the Board of Ed has, because we're teaching high school kids, and there are a lot of college kids who use a part-time job, so perhaps 2 co-op programs that Comcast can provide. I'm very hopeful that this beneficial clause continues and expands. Now JCE-TV and JC1-TV have been sharing this channel for 11 years. And at one meeting I was present, I understood that Comcast was offering us to have our own channel, and the city to have its own channel. The caveat being the Channel 1 question. I know that the city is concerned with branding, and having long been regarded as City 1, I'm constantly called City 1 of my station. But the truth is that we're on two systems. On Comcast, we share the week at City Hall 3.5 days a week on Channel 1 Comcast, but on Verizon, JCE TV is on Channel 43 and JC1 TV is on Channel 37. So I feel that at this point in time, the city should seize the opportunity to hold Comcast's foot to the fire and offer a reasonable bounty besides the job programs I'm talking about. One, something the mayor, actually, let's get to the branding program right away. Since the current top of the channel on Comcast is $9.99, I would recommend, I'll get to the branding of the city, I would recommend possibly that the city takes over $9.99 and we take over $9.98, which is 2 silent clicks or 1 silent clicks to the left of Channel 1. But there will be a price for that the city will be paid for by Comcast. The second request is something I've been advocating for years, something the mayor just mentioned, is first of all, the caucus room. For years, I've always thought that Comcast could keep their camera crew at home, give us the money, give the city the money to wire up remotely 3 good cameras, deal with sound properly, and wire it upstairs to the TV studio where they could choose cameras on professional quality cameras from the caucus room. And to me, that might not even be part of the franchise agreement. That could be a deal in regards to keep your crew at home, which would cost a certain amount of money every 2 weeks. And that's a deal, that's a trade. Give us good cameras and keep your crew at home. The trade comes with bigger Apple, this room. I watch on JC1 TV too, and I know that the webcams are a stopgap to at least get it on the air. But with professional cameras and plugging into your sound system, the game can be upped. So this would, hooking up City Hall council chambers to me is a top priority as a part of what Comcast can do. They're in the TV business, they install. And the other part is, right now, since Comcast was the first game in town, as I understand it, we still have coaxial cable. It's not across the Comcast. And you might have fiber optic, hook us all fiber optic so that when we get the money to go high definition, we have the right equipment in mind. Verizon came in to both places with fiber optic cable, which gives us both the capability as we grow on to hook up high definition TVs. Basically, no one in this room probably is still watching television from 12 years ago. And it's tough enough with keeping up with equipment, much less moving to high definition. So perhaps the City Council can request some high definition cameras for the studio, and we're on our way to joining the 21st century. And that's it.
Good evening, ESPN 89 Mercer Street. I found it amusing that the mayor was real quick to suggest Channel 51, which is the public access channel. He was on my show talking politics as a councilman who refused to come on when he became mayor. So we're definitely opposed to any thoughts of changing Channel 51. Now, in terms of taking Channel 1, I found in the past, many years ago, that Comcast would preempt our programming. I sent out 2,000 emails, and then basketball was in my time slot. So I contacted Comcast, and they told me they had every right to do that. Well, I contacted a number of politicians, and Senator Corzine's office got back to us and said, absolutely not. The rules for cable TV were set up by the federal government in like the 1960s. That's why they got a monopoly, because they didn't want 3 or 4 companies stringing up a town full of wiring. So they were not permitted to preempt us, and he had them cease immediately. So first of all, I think you should look into whether this is even legal, because they seem to make it a habit to do whatever they want to do. And I agree with the mayor, Channel 1 should stay as a city channel. Whether you split up the schools, that's another issue. I don't know if there's enough programming to really use 2 channels, but that's another situation. I do notice that the quality of the caucus meetings is really poor. I know Channel 51 is not a high definition station, and it's okay. I remember the former manager, public access coordinator used to complain that the place really needed to be rewired, and they didn't want to spend the money. Now, in terms of amenities for public access, we have nothing. Now, luckily, like Yvonne and myself, we've been doing it long enough, we bought our own equipment. But at that time, I got training from the former public access coordinator, Ruben Rodriguez, on terms of editing. That's not available. Right? Towns such as Union City, Bayonne, Westfield, Newark, all have their own channels. But they also happen to have Cablevision. So maybe that's our problem here, is that we need to talk to the Cablevision people and talk to them and see what they're willing to offer, because they provide a lot more amenities for public access, including equipment, training, and a studio, which is also open two nights a week. We have nothing on Kennedy Boulevard. The public access coordinator is a great guy. He responds via email at any time. He lets me drop off shows on Sunday night because I have the number for the control room. He's a good guy, but he's there basically, I think he's there 2 days for like 4 hours. So I don't know how anybody between 11 and 2, if you're working, and most public access producers, this is a hobby, all right? They're working during those. How do they ever get access to equipment? How do they get any access to assistance on editing? They're just not there. They're just not there. It's a ghost town on Kennedy Boulevard, and we're the second largest city in the state, and we have nothing to show for it. So I find that discouraging, because I think there should be more people coming up the ranks to be producers, but if you can't get access to equipment and you don't have a couple thousand, equipment costs have come down tremendously, but still you only have a couple $1,000s. So if you don't have that money, I don't know how you're going to be able to get started. And I think public access can provide a terrific service. I also see that Comcast uses too much New York City programming in our channel. Now, part of it could be because of the fact that we don't have enough public access. I don't know. But I've known people have difficulty getting a time slot.
First, one thing I did want to advocate for is for a public access television studio. Briefly going back to the history of the initial company that had the franchise here, they had a studio that was available to local producers. They did something called local origination, which was the cable company acting in effect as a local television station. We had a very wide range of shows. I didn't bring my file with me tonight, but I have photocopies of the Jersey Journal from about 1997, 1998, and I recall a number of people that were hosts, volunteer hosts of these shows, whether it was a call-in show for political purposes or on social or sports issues. There were a number of people that had shows that were recorded in the studio on Kennedy Boulevard, 2121 Kennedy Boulevard. So historically, that had existed through the 80s and through the 90s. Now, as we approached the last time that the franchise was granted to Comcast, they made a business decision to close that studio to public access producers. There was nothing else available in the city through the library. There was nothing else available through any of the colleges. At that time, there was nothing else available through the public school system. And again, at that time, if you review the materials from around 1998, when the current franchise was granted, the cable provider made a big deal about the fact that it was going to be doing some new local programming. I would think that a lot of the council members here appeared on a show called Jersey City, Comcast Jersey City Newspapers, which was a 5-minute interview show. They ran it on Headline and Cable. They discontinued that approximately 2 years ago. I think they invited the council members and people from our local nonprofits to travel out to their studio reunion with that, I don't think is the most convenient thing for you. They also had a regional cable channel called the Comcast Network, which they identified as CN8 on Channel 8. That existed for about 10 years, and they initially promised, again, back when that was first started, back in 1998, that don't worry, you're going from your City 3, the old TV Channel 3, local origination channel. The city's going to now have Channel 1. We're going to form Channel 51 as the public access channel, but we will also cover your town on our regional cable network called the Comcast Network. Well, I think if we were to do a statistical analysis, there was very little coverage. They may have done a documentary on Coach Hurley, and they may have covered a few St. Peter's College basketball games, but we didn't see the high school football, we didn't see the high school basketball that I think we were promised. Long story short, again, reviewing back the arguments that they made back in '98, they said we're going to be doing a lot of high-quality local programming. Well, they're not doing that anymore, so I asked you to take that into consideration when you're asking them to re-equip JC1, to re-equip JCETV, and for them to re-equip or upgrade the public access control room to get good audio and video out for the public access producers. And again, it's up to the city. The city has a certain amount of discretion in terms of the money that it has been receiving, which presumably goes into the general account, to do something for the public access producers. Again, people that have bought their own equipment, their own cameras, their own microphones, their own editing equipment, and as it is a hobby to some extent that people do when they get home from their regular jobs. But to make a studio available, which is something that the average person can't afford, and really nobody has, a 2 or 3 camera studio, to make that available as a public platform. And I've been a student of cable TV for many years. That was the initial promise going back to the 60s and the 70s, that the promise of video technology as electronic soapbox. And I would also support, again, as was mentioned by the other speakers, the upgrading of the cameras and the microphones in this chamber, and the upgrading or the installation of multiple camera systems in the caucus chambers, as the other people advocated for. I wanted to mention, I have read the current franchise contract. I believe that contract already gives the city the right to request a separate channel for JCETV upon request of, I don't know if it's the governing body or the mayor. So that's not something that you have to now ask them to give you in the upcoming negotiations. You already have that right according to my reading of the contract. I'm a non-practicing attorney, but I have read the contract and I have studied cable television issues. So I don't think that that is something that's something you already have. And again, it may just be a simple resolution or a letter from you or from the mayor saying, please activate the educational, a separate channel for educational access, and we will work out the details in terms of the channel number. Okay. Some of the other members of the public may have left. The public perception is that cable television is a monopoly. That's not true. What it actually may be is a de facto monopoly, meaning that's the way it works out in real life, because it's so expensive to string cables up across an entire city, to wire the city, to put your signal out, that most cities in the United States, whether it's over 95%, only have one cable provider, whether it's Comcast in Jersey City or Cablevision in Bayonne, or brief history is whether it was 5 or 7 years ago, there was a company by the name of RCN. They were granted a municipal franchise by Jersey City. Unfortunately, I think due to an earlier downfall in the stock market, they did not have the money to proceed to come in as a competitor as a second cable system, because they would have had to string a whole separate set of wires. Comcast or Cablevision or anybody else, they did not share their wires. That's theirs, that's proprietary. And again, I don't know if some of the other members of the public here, President of Verizon Fios obviously has come in and we've been provided with the subscriber numbers, and I don't know whether or not maybe they don't service that particular individual's apartment house, but they service my apartment house, and I think they're generally available. So they, in effect, even though they're the telephone company, they are, in effect, the second cable company that exists here, and people are taking advantage of it. So, again, I wanted to ask a question. I don't know if a separate committee a special committee was set up on this issue. I don't know if I'm out of line to answer the question. Okay. I'm aware of certain things, and I have already spoken with one council person, having worked as an independent contractor for the cable company for many years. The one thing that and being a student of political science and history here in Jersey City, I would just give you a brief mention of the fact that going back to the original franchisee, there were a lot of programs produced by local producers, and there were a lot of programs produced by Control Cable, Jersey City, the original company, and whatever the subsequent franchisee was. I remember we had election night with Jack Finn. We had election night with Paul Spahala, who was a Comcast Newsmakers host. We had programs that Yvonne also did in that studio. Those tapes were thrown out. Several hundred 3/4-inch industrial videotapes were thrown out a number of years ago. I'm not aware that any overture was made to the council or to the mayor's office. I tried to facilitate, as an independent person, not being paid in any way. I attempted to facilitate a dialogue with the public library, but that didn't work out. And those hundreds of tapes of Jersey City history went into the dumpster and they were lost forever. I've got a few copies of a few items that I made, but the cable company used to do an election night. They used to do sports programs. They used to do call-ins, and again, the public access producers that had use of the studios. So that's my big issue, is that if the city can consider that when they're upgrading the other facilities, whether we can involve the library system, whether we can involve some other non-governmental organization that would give access in the evenings, as Mia Scanlon mentioned. A lot of us work during the daytime, so we're shooting and editing our programs at night or on weekends. So the important thing to consider would be access to that studio editing facility on 1 or 2 or more nights a week, and or a Saturday or a Sunday, if that's possible. Thank you.
Thank you.